Controlling costs. So, my business is effectively shut, yet I still have lots of expenses. What can I do to reduce those? Well, some of the big costs that businesses face tend to be staff, lease payments, raw materials, and I think we've touched on each of those. However, you can still die a death of 1,000 cuts from money leaking out from lots of relatively small expenses. For example, I have a client who went to the United Arab Emirates on business a couple of years back. He signed up to a software service so he could work remotely while he was away. He was away for about 2 or 3 weeks. He came back 18 months later. He was still paying for that software subscription. How many of us, both in our business lives and our personal lives, are paying for stuff that we're not using? How many of us are paying for expenses that at present we're getting no real benefit from? Are you paying for a service but not consuming that service at present? If so, I would be suggesting getting in touch with that supplier and asking for some credit. So maybe you run a cafe that has newspapers delivered every day. Probably not so much at the moment. Perhaps you have commercial cleaners coming through your retail shop. They probably haven't been through in the last week or two. Maybe you have rubbish removal on contract for your manufacturing business. There's probably not that much to collect at the moment. None of these services are operating in your business if your business is shut right now. What other stuff are you paying for but not receiving any benefit from? Now, for small businesses, the simplest way to figure this out is to download your bank statement and read through it line by line. If you run something like Xero, you can take a look at the reports like your profit or loss and the cash summary, and you will see exactly what you're paying for each month. Going forward, it's likely that many businesses are going to have to tighten their belts. So we might as well start now. It's as good a time as any to make sure you're getting a good deal on any of your overhead costs. So by all means, engage with your suppliers and shop around.